It was a beautiful sunny morning at Peppa's house. Everything seemed perfect and normal, just like any other day. Peppa was playing with her favorite toys in the living room when she heard a strange noise coming from upstairs. The mysterious sound seemed to be coming from the attic. Peppa had never been up there alone before. In the dusty attic, Peppa found something strange, an old mirror covered by a mysterious cloth. When Peppa removed the cloth, she revealed an ancient mirror with strange symbols carved into its frame. As Peppa looked into the mirror, something was wrong. Her reflection looked different, darker somehow. Peppa went to the kitchen to tell Mummy Pig about the mirror, but something was strange about the food she was cooking. Mummy Pig smiled at Peppa, but her eyes seemed empty, as if she was looking right through her. In George's room, even his favorite dinosaur toy looked menacing and wrong. When the family gathered for dinner, Peppa noticed everyone seemed different, like they were all wearing masks. Peppa returned to the attic, hoping the mirror could explain what was happening to her family. The mirror revealed the truth. It was showing her a dark parallel world where everything was corrupted. In the mirror world, her family had become monsters, living in a house of shadows and fear. The kitchen had become a place of nightmares, where Mummy Pig prepared meals that no one should ever eat. As Peppa stared into the mirror, she felt herself changing, becoming part of the dark world she was seeing. The house itself was changing around her, becoming the twisted version from the mirror. Her family, now completely transformed, welcomed her into their new dark reality with hollow smiles. Peppa realized the mirror was the source of the curse and tried desperately to break it. The mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, but the curse had already taken hold. From the outside, Peppa's house looked normal, but inside, the curse lived on forever. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when Peppa decided to explore the dusty attic of her house. Among old boxes and forgotten toys, she discovered something peculiar, an ornate antique mirror with strange symbols carved around its frame. As Peppa approached the mirror, she noticed something odd. Her reflection looked normal, but the room behind her in the mirror was different. The walls were darker, the furniture was twisted, and shadows moved where there should be none. Curious, Peppa touched the mirror's surface. Suddenly, the glass rippled like water, and she felt herself being pulled through. She found herself in what looked like her house, but everything was wrong. The colors were muted, the air was cold, and an eerie silence filled every room. Peppa called out for her family, but when they appeared, she gasped in horror. George had pale green skin with stitches across his face. Mummy Pig's eyes glowed red, and her smile was too wide. Daddy Pig moved with jerky, unnatural movements, like a broken puppet. "Welcome to our world, Peppa," they said in unison, their voices hollow and distorted. "You can stay here forever with us." Peppa tried to run back to the mirror, but it had vanished. She was trapped in this nightmare version of her home, where her family looked like monsters and the very walls seemed to whisper her name. As days passed in this twisted realm, Peppa began to change too. Her skin grew pale, her eyes became hollow, and she started to forget what her real world looked like. The mirror world was claiming her, making her one of its own. But deep inside, a small part of Peppa remembered the warmth of her real family's love. Fighting against the darkness, she searched desperately for a way home, knowing that if she stayed much longer, she would become just another scary reflection, forever lost in the mirror world. It was a peculiar evening when Peppa discovered something that would change everything. The house seemed different somehow, as if shadows were watching from every corner. Peppa had found the mysterious mirror in Grandpa Pig's old trunk. The ancient glass seemed to shimmer with its own light, calling to her with whispered promises. As Peppa peered into the mirror, she noticed something strange. Her reflection looked back at her, but the room behind her in the mirror was different, darker, more sinister. Suddenly, the mirror began to pulse with an ancient magic. Peppa felt drawn to it, unable to look away as the glass started to ripple like water. In the mirror's depths, Peppa saw another version of herself, one with green, stitched skin and hollow eyes. This other Peppa smiled with too many teeth. The mirror Peppa beckoned with a clawed hand. "Come closer," It seemed to whisper, "Let me show you what you could become." Downstairs, George had already been touched by the mirror's curse. His beloved dinosaur toy now looked as twisted as he did, with sharp teeth and glowing eyes. Mummy and Daddy Pig continued their evening routine, unaware that they too had been changed. The mirror's influence was spreading through the house like a plague. When Peppa's fingers touched the cold glass, she felt a chill run through her entire body. The mirror was not just showing her another world, it was pulling her into it. As Peppa walked through her home, she realized that reality itself had shifted. The photographs showed that her family had always been these twisted creatures. The family gathered for their evening television time, but the programs had changed too. Only darkness and chaos flickered across the screen now. At dinner, the family consumed their meal without question. What had once been wholesome food was now something that defied description, yet it satisfied their new hunger. Even at school, the transformation had taken hold. Susie Sheep waited by the rusted swings, her wool now matted and her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. That night, Peppa lay awake, haunted by memories of who she used to be. The mirror continued to pulse with its cursed energy, feeding on the chaos it had created. Driven by a fragment of her former self, Peppa searched the attic for answers. Among Grandpa Pig's old belongings, she found books that spoke of cursed mirrors and their power. The ancient text revealed the truth. The mirror was a prison for dark spirits, and breaking it would require a sacrifice, the very memories of who she used to be. Standing before the cursed glass, Peppa saw both versions of herself reflected back. She raised the hammer, knowing that destroying the mirror might destroy her too. With a mighty swing, Peppa shattered the mirror. Dark energy exploded outward as the imprisoned spirits were finally released, screaming into the night. As dawn broke, Peppa awoke in her normal form. The nightmare seemed to be over, but the broken mirror shards on her floor proved it had all been terrifyingly real. The family returned to their normal lives, with no memory of their cursed night. But in the shadows, one mirror shard remained, waiting patiently for its next victim. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when Peppa decided to explore the dusty attic of her house. The wooden stairs creaked ominously under her little hooves as she climbed higher and higher, leaving the safety of her familiar home behind. The attic was filled with forgotten treasures and mysterious shadows. Cobwebs danced in the dim light filtering through a small window, and the air smelled of old memories and secrets. Peppa's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she wandered through the maze of old furniture and boxes. In the far corner, hidden beneath a moth-eaten cloth, she discovered something extraordinary. It was an ornate music box, its surface covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer and move in the half-light. The box was beautiful yet unsettling, with intricate carvings that told a story she couldn't understand. Unable to resist, Peppa wound the tiny key and opened the lid. A haunting melody began to play, unlike anything she had ever heard before. The tune was both beautiful and terrifying, weaving through the air like a living thing. As the music filled the attic, something began to change. The shadows grew longer and darker, reaching out like grasping fingers. The temperature dropped, and Peppa's breath became visible in the suddenly frigid air. She tried to close the music box, but it wouldn't stop playing. The melody had taken on a life of its own. Downstairs, George was playing with his dinosaur when he heard the strange music. His cheerful expression began to fade as his skin turned a sickly green color. His eyes became hollow and dark, and his innocent smile twisted into something sinister. The curse was spreading. Mummy Pig was in the kitchen preparing lunch when the melody reached her ears. Her pink complexion began to change, becoming pale and gray. Stitches appeared across her face, and her warm smile became a frightening grimace. She was no longer the loving mother they knew. Daddy Pig was reading his newspaper in the living room when the cursed tune found him. His jolly demeanor vanished as his body began to transform. His eyes became bloodshot, and his cheerful laugh turned into a menacing growl. The music box's power was consuming everyone. Back in the attic, Peppa watched in horror as her own reflection in an old mirror began to change. Her pink skin turned green and mottled, Her eyes became sunken and surrounded by dark circles. Stitches appeared across her face, and her innocent expression became twisted and frightening. The music box's melody grew louder and more intense, filling the entire house with its cursed song. The walls seemed to pulse with the rhythm, and the very air became thick and oppressive. The house itself was being transformed by the ancient curse. Peppa realized she had to stop the music box before the transformation became permanent. Fighting against the curse's influence, she struggled to reach the ornate box. Her movements were slow and difficult, as if she were moving through thick syrup. With tremendous effort, she managed to grab the music box. The metal was ice cold and seemed to burn her hooves. The strange symbols on its surface glowed with an eerie light, and she could feel the malevolent power within trying to resist her. Using all her strength, Peppa slammed the lid shut. The haunting melody stopped abruptly, leaving behind an oppressive silence that was almost worse than the music. The house seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Slowly, very slowly, the transformations began to reverse. The green color faded from her skin, the stitches disappeared, and her eyes returned to normal. She could hear similar changes happening throughout the house as her family returned to their normal selves. But as Peppa looked at the music box one final time before hiding it away forever, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The strange symbols on its surface had changed, and now they seemed to spell out a message. Until next time. The music box was quiet now, but Peppa knew that its curse was merely sleeping, waiting for the next curious soul to wind its key and release its terrible power once again. Some secrets, she realized, were meant to stay buried in the forgotten corners of old attics. As she carefully placed the music box back under its cloth covering, Peppa made a silent promise never to speak of what had happened. But sometimes, on quiet nights, she could still hear the faint echo of that haunting melody, reminding her that some doors should never be opened. The attic returned to its peaceful slumber, filled once again with nothing but dust and forgotten memories. But now it held one more secret, one more dangerous treasure hidden away from the world. And Peppa knew that as long as the music box remained in the attic, her family would never be completely safe from its cursed song.
It was the darkest night of the year. A blood-red moon hung over Peppa's house as storm clouds gathered ominously overhead. Peppa was fast asleep, unaware that something ancient and evil was stirring in the shadows of her room. At her window, a creature of the night watched and waited. Its glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness. Peppa woke with a start. The window was open, and a cold wind filled her room. How did it get open? Peppa felt a strange pain in her neck. When she touched it, she found 2 small puncture marks. "What happened to me?" she whispered. In the bathroom mirror, Peppa noticed something terrifying. Her reflection was becoming fainter and fainter. At breakfast, nothing tasted right anymore. The food that Peppa once loved now seemed disgusting and flavorless. The morning sunlight streaming through the windows burned Peppa's skin. She felt weak and strange, unlike ever before. At school, Peppa found herself avoiding her friends. Something inside her whispered, "Stay away from them. You're dangerous now." When Peppa looked at Susie Sheep, her eyes flashed red for a moment. She felt a terrible hunger she had never experienced before. That night, the transformation began. Peppa's skin started to change color, and she felt sharp fangs growing in her mouth. Peppa stared at her reflection in terror. She had become something she never imagined, a creature of the night. The vampire hunger was overwhelming. Peppa approached her sleeping family, fighting against the dark urges within her. Unable to control herself, Peppa accidentally bit George. Immediately, her little brother began to change as well. George had become like Peppa, a vampire. "We're the same now," Peppa said sadly, realizing what she had done. The vampire curse was spreading. Soon, Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig would join them in their dark transformation. The entire family had become vampires. They were no longer the happy pig family they once were, but creatures of the night. The vampire family visited Grandpa and Grandma Pig, unknowingly spreading their curse to the older generation. The vampire curse had spread throughout their community. All of Peppa's friends had become creatures of the night. As dawn approached, the vampire family stood together. They were forever changed, but they were still family. In darkness, they had found a new kind of unity.